Welcome to The Real Deal on ... And today we're talking again more reinvention. And we have a very special guest. Some of you may or may not know that we filmed this in South Florida, and this gentleman traversed his way from Washington, D.C. just to share. So we owe him an immense amount of gratitude for that. His story from the White House to the crack house and back.
And back.
And back. We didn't complete the sentence earlier today. So we'd like to introduce to you the man of mystery, the man of intrigue, Mr. Jonathan Clark. And if there was a laugh track or sound track, we'd get a little applause.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you
Hello,
so
everyone.
much for coming.
Yes.
We were introduced by a mutual friend.
Yes.
And he was so excited to have us share, because you had such a profound impact on him through your invention.
Yes.
So as a way of sharing, why don't you explain where you've been and what brought you here?
Wow. Where I've been and what brought me here. My story is one of redemption. One of, what I thought was great promise and, and big expectations and hopes by my parents. And then incredible, unfortunately, tragedy that had taken me to some very, very sordid, dark places to where I didn't think I could escape from. And then through working with others, through looking into those who had actually found a solution, applying that solution to my life, and then finding a life that has been more rewarding, more fulfilling, more incredible than I could have imagined. Mm-hmm. That's a quick summary of my journey.
Of course, yeah. And what was interesting about yours is one of the things that was shared, and you had sent me the video that you had won an award for the 40 under 40, super accomplished. From the outside looking in, you had a charmed life. Then how much after that were you ending up almost dead?
Yes. I think I overdosed just a few days after that event. I had won a top 40 under 40 award, and I remember talking about my accomplishments. And the thing is that I had up to that point, my addiction was still full blown, but I was trying to manage it. I was trying to, cover up, the consequences outside. But the truth is that it was killing me from the inside, and I was dying slowly, and you can see it, and it started to come. I couldn't keep it secret no longer.
Right. Did you consider yourself at that time a functioning addict? Because you'd already been at that point. You'd already been through treatment, multiple treatments by that point. So, how does one? And I'm sharing this because. I'm going to hallucinate that you're not the only one who has ever experienced the idea that, hey, it looks like I'm doing good, I'm making money, I got a great job, I've got a house, I got all that great stuff. How does one get from, and I realize you had, God hit you with a sledgehammer. Mm-hmm. How long, and if you could relate to other people, how did you feel living that that was a lie, essentially?
It was honestly a lie that I was ashamed of, and it took a very, it took me experiencing some enormous amounts of pain in order for me to make a change, because I thought that as long as no one knew, then it was okay. And it wasn't until that I had been brought to my knees through a number of different circumstances and overdoses and different experiences that had happened to my life, that I realized that not only was I not living, but I was dying. And here's the thing: when I talk to people, when I talk about them working programs so they don't relapse, or if they do, they'll die. It's not really death that I'm purely talking about. Living that way of life, for me, is death. And I didn't realize that I was not living. That was not life. That was, if I'm not doing anything for anybody else, then what's the point? And there was nothing productive on this planet. I was doing nothing but making rich people richer, and I wasn't doing anything for anybody else. And it wasn't until I had fallen to my knees, gotten picked up and reached out, and someone grabbed my hand, lifted me up, that I saw that there was a better way.
Wow. One of the things you shared today was shortly before that, the lie you were living, you were with President Obama.
Yes. Oh, gosh, yes. Yes.
and active, and then
we had.
Essentially left the room to show off at the crack house, I believe.
Well, yes, I left. Yes, I was at we had a private event for Obama, and I thought it was a very good, a high quality group of people, obviously, and as soon as it's over, I leave straight from that event, straight to the crack house. And I'm in my mind thinking that this is okay, and I'm showing pictures and I'm saying, look at this, not realizing that, I am still sowing my own destruction when I have so much potential, so much opportunity in front of me, and yet I go back to that thing which is killing me.
Yeah. And as we have this conversation, something that's actually occurring to me is, there are a lot of people who may have been in a position of yours and then are embarrassed and ashamed about their recovery.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I'll always ask our clients and people who are in this process say, did you hide your addiction? And they always say, well, of course. I said, if you hide your recovery, what's different? And it's a tough one to wrap their head around, and you started to touch on it today.
Yes.
And I wish you had more time, so here's a great time. How have you transformed, and this is the reinvention, you did talk about the identity, reinventing the acceptance of your Jonathan plus struggling with addiction, and adding the value to other people by sharing your story?
Well, I used to think that I used to be very ashamed of my disease. I was ashamed of what I had done, ashamed of me continuing to use, and I was ashamed of not being able to fix myself. I thought I was a pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of person, and I thought I created this problem, I should be able to fix it. And so when I could not do that, I was ashamed of that fact. When I got sober, I was still ashamed because, again, I had to go to treatment. I had to go to IOP. I had to, be around all these other people who could not manage their lives. And I was like judging, they say that alcoholics and addicts, we can be face down in the gutter and still look down on someone. And that's kind of like in my mind, I was thinking, I'm in this place with these people that I thought I was better than. Okay. And I started, once I found myself there, I took a look at myself and said, you know what, there is no difference. We are all the same. And when I started that process of ego deflation, I also saw that there was a way to transform this pain, this sadness that I had carried for so long, and transform it to power. One of the things that I talk about a lot is that this is not, when people go to AA, when people go to recovery, when people go to treatment, it is not the disempowering environment. It's not a disempowering choice. This is a choice for empowerment. I say that recovery is an empowerment program. It's about getting connected to power. And once I got connected to that, I was able to transform my tragedy into triumph. Because this disease that we have overcome, that we've recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. And being able to do that is one of the most admirable things on this planet. And I realized that once I was able to overcome this challenge, that I could help others overcome other challenges. So now all of a sudden, this thing that I was so ashamed of is now a source of inspiration, a source of hope, and something to appreciate.
And was there a moment or any advice you could give someone to be able to open themselves up to that opportunity to use it as that? Because did it happen overnight, or
it happened. Truthfully, it happened through me being of service.
Okay.
It happened. They'd say, there's a few things you have to do. Service is one of them, and I didn't understand. Okay, I was like, how is fixing these chairs, or how is being of service and serving coffee going to help my recovery? Well, what happens is that when you actually take these actions, what you're doing is, one, you're participating to a cause bigger than yourself, which causes you to be a part of something greater than yourself. But then you start realizing that you're contributing to someone else's success. And it's no longer about you, but you're actually, because of your journey, someone else can benefit. And that is where this strength multiplier came in, because it wasn't just about me getting stronger, it was about me helping others get stronger. And that multiplier effect goes on, because then they go out and they help other people get stronger, and it carries out, it has ripples throughout society. And that's where the true strength for me came from. And it was something that, it's a redeemable quality. It is something that people admire. And it was then when I actually became proud of the fact that I, have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body, and that I could tell people about it without being afraid, without being, being fear of being judged. Because the truth is that when I first got sober, I was a little afraid. I was afraid because I thought because there wasn't enough space really between my use and where I was at that point.
Well, and the world that you were working in, right? Because we hear this all the time.
Oh man!
Like you can't.
They can't know. There was no way they could know.
You also, if you shared today, you also had a felony.
Yes.
Was it just one?
I know I've had, I ended up getting, unfortunately, multiple felonies throughout my addiction.
But that doesn't end your life.
Well, I thought it did. And no one must know. And that this is a secret, I was going to take to my grave. My family didn't know, and it took a lot of work. And it was only when I started to become comfortable with who I am today. I started to be able to truly, see and appreciate who I was in the mirror. And be proud of that guy, and be proud of the esteemable deeds I've completed. And they say that the best way to build self-esteem is to do esteemable things.
Yeah.
And
you shared that today is just the act of doing, and just showing up and doing it. One of the things I love that you shared today was, the meetings are optional, the steps are mandatory. Like it's the work that you get.
It's the work.
So many people, and we say that. Other thing I love you said, 95% is a bitch, 100% is a breeze. That's like, showing up is 80%. I went to the meetings. That's not really quite what we're talking about here. It's a great start. It's better than not. And hopefully being in whatever environment you're in, you're with people who are doing 100%.
That's right.
How do you bridge that gap from 95 to 100? Because, you're clearly very intelligent. You've got your great head on your shoulders. It's probably easy for you to coast at 95.
Yes, but unfortunately, intelligence is not necessarily an asset in recovery. It worked against me because it continued to buttress my ego, where I thought that, because of all my degrees, or because of I went to this so-and-so school and that school, that I could figure out a way to fix this problem, or I wasn't as bad as those other people, or I'm smarter, so I should be able to find a solution. And they say that, unfortunately, they said recovery, the program works for a lot of it's easy for people who a lot of dumb people, but it can be harder for people. It doesn't work for a lot of people who are not so dumb. Because the thing is that we're continuing to find, our experience shows us that, okay, my mind has saved me from has gotten me to some pretty good places. And so we're relying on our mind for the solution. But the truth is that you can't fight the problem with the problem. You have to step outside yourself. You have to, for a moment, relinquish control and say, you know what? These people know something I don't.
Right.
And that was where I first started to get access to power, because I got myself out of the way and I was able to let power flow through me from other people.
And that ourself is what stops us from accessing ourselves.
Yes.
That's the paradox that we're always struggling, is that everything, our connection to God, to the higher power, whatever that is, we're the modem.
That's right.
But if we block it with the stories we tell, or the intellect.
The stories we tell, our intellect, our self-limiting beliefs about what's possible, and all these things get in the way. And it's interesting because I didn't understand this. I didn't understand that, the whole point of the program, the whole point of recovery is to essentially, get connected to power. And I didn't see that these things that I had put in the way through my addiction and through my life had begun piling up. And here's the thing. Now, when you go through, I tell people when they go through the program, what you're doing in the beginning, my whole job is to get people to to the 12th step as quick as possible. That's actually one of the things, and that's something I have right now with a lot of the way that people do things. They stretch it out for so long.
It's supposed to be done in what, like 10 days or 2 weeks or something?
I worked with the number one, the head historian for AA, a guy named Wally P. And he has 100,000 documents of material, but the way that they practice it. And so I did a program on how the first 100 did the program. And the way that they did it is so different. I mean, the whole thing was create no boundary and no obstacle between the newcomer and the 12th step. Get them there as quick as possible. Get them there being of service. Get them there helping people and get them connected to power. The things that there are other things that need to be dealt with, but they can be dealt with after they are living a life that is continuing to be of service and rewarding.
And it's not a one and done program. No. You live the program. Yes. So that's where there's also a little bit of a difference, because people are like, oh, I did the 12 steps. Like, no. You either live them or you don't. It's not just you go through the process. I didn't talk about that today, and I wish I would have, because I had tried to, before when I was trying to get sober and relapsing, I was trying to replace, they said, make recovery the most important thing in your life, or make it number one. But what was happening is that, and then I would have other things underneath that. But what was happening is that depending on where I put my focus was what was the number one priority in my life. So all of a sudden work would become my number one focus, or the girl would become my number one focus. And so that priority list would change. And so I could easily lose track of sobriety being my focus. So what I've done since then is no longer am I playing, priority of 1 and 2 and, or doing that game, but making sobriety and recovery the center of my life. And then building my life around it. So no matter where I go and what I do, at the core of who I am and what I'm doing is my recovery. And it makes it very simple. And it allows me to do things that many people would say that you can't do. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it just made me think of something. Oftentimes we hear this, all you have to do is give up one thing, so you gotta have everything. Why can't you just give up one thing, so you gotta have everything? And then when someone's active, their response is because everything includes that one thing, because life has been built around
That's right.
their drug of choice.
That's exactly right.
So you just shared, use it. Now I just take out drugs, put sobriety and my recovery.
That's exactly right.
And then it ends up working the same.
That's exactly right.
It's a fundamental. It's a principle. It's not a task.
Yeah.
It has tasks. Right, just like working out, right? You obviously work out. Do you just work out your arms?
No, exactly. No. I do. I have a full body routine that I do every other day. But it's something that I am consistent at it. And I tell people all the time, this with exercise, that consistency by itself is 90% of the battle. By itself, if I just continue to do something, that I'm going to reap rewards, whether I am really trying or not. As long as I do it and take the actions, I'm going to see the results. And the thing is that I say it all the time. That we see a lot of people out there who are struggling and who are say this person needs to recover. This person, look how bad they are. They should get it, because you see how they're dying and they need a way out. Well, the thing is that recovery doesn't work for those who want it. It doesn't work for those who need it. It only works for those that do it. And this is something again and again. And it's not it is not. It doesn't even matter what you believe, but it matters what you do.
How do you get yourself to do it? It came up today when you spoke, and thank you again for doing so. And a couple of times some questions came up on how do you do that? Are there ever times when you have a bad moment that you have what are some of your strategies that have worked for you to, what if a meeting's not available?
Okay. The thing is that when you look back at the 75% success rate that they had back in the early 40s, there was something that they were doing. And I asked myself, I said, well, how is it possible? And how did they even know that they had a 75% success rate? Well, I had all these questions answered working with the head historian. And the way that they worked is you actually had to go through the program before you were allowed in the meeting. You actually had to, which is why there's a line
that's
like,
remember. Right, that's what it means. He actually got a card.
Yes, you actually got a card. And the newcomer, and here's something major, that some of the things that they did blew my mind. because we don't do them today. One of them was that, they always say that the sponsee needs to call the sponsor. That's not how it was then. The sponsor called the sponsee. And not just that, check this. The sponsor was the one who wrote down your 4-step. The sponsee didn't do it, because when you got someone who's new, who's struggling, whose mind isn't even working at 50%, to give them a book and give them and say, okay, now do this process. It's like saying, okay, go set them up to fail. And that was, and the key was, okay, so get them to 12-step as quick as possible. So what happened is that the sponsor would ask them questions and write it down, and write it down, and write it down. And so all of a sudden, the sponsor has the 4-step laid out and then shows them, because the thing is that the power isn't in the writing. The power is in the sharing.
Right.
The power is in the connection of the 4-step. And that's actually what they did then. And some of these things were real game changers when I understood that, okay, well, my goal is to get someone connected to power. And if that means that I have to write it down, if that means I have to call them.
That's the ultimate service. I mean, talk about, my hallucination is, I could be wrong, one of the reasons why they stopped doing that is because that sounds like it's a lot of work.
Well, there's a reason why they did, and this is kind of interesting too, is because in the beginning, the term sponsors came from a few different places. One is that the Oxford group, you had to know someone to get in, but the actual sponsorship of someone, the way that worked in AA is that when someone went to treatment, they usually didn't have any money, and so the reason why the sponsor stayed in touch with them, because sponsor wanted to make sure that they were getting sober and that they were working to pay the sponsor back for paying the treatment. The sponsor paid for your treatment, and the reason why they called them is to make sure you're working, that you could pay it back. So that's what the term sponsor came from.
Accountability frame.
Yeah, so talk about paying for treatment. I mean, and that's back when they had the detoxes were only like 6-7 days, or but still, that's the way that things.
That is pretty cool. This was not a direction I thought we were going to go. So that's pretty cool. But it's so interesting because how valuable that is to look back into some of the history and how things got diluted over time. Right, like I love, we're both have been through like Tony Robbins and personal development stuff. I love going back to old Jim Rohn and Wallace D. Waddles and some of that other stuff. Then you go, that's where that came from, and you get a different sort of angle because everyone puts their spin on it.
Well, see, I try to, I tried. I try to go back to the core, but I also, look to those who are living it and practicing it today.
Right.
Me and you, we are followers of Tony Robbins, and he is one that is living and exemplifying all those teachers before him. Mm-hmm. And so in recovery, I do the same thing, and I look for those, I call them my recovery heroes or AA heroes. That are really going out there, living it, and doing the deal. And when I listen to them talk, they're not talking about their own interpretations. They're talking about their interpretations of what the beginners were doing, of what the old timers were doing 80 years ago. Wow. And that's when I started, because that's I didn't come up with any of these things on my own. Mm-hmm. And I heard someone say, "Well, what did they do 80 years ago?" And I said, "Oh, that's maybe we should look
Valid
at that.
Question,
75% success." And here's how they knew that whether you were sober or not. Is because it was card-carrying members in order to get in, and there was only one meeting a week. And they knew who was supposed to be at that meeting. So if you didn't show up, there was one person missing. So, okay, what's going on? They would call that person, go to their house, and it was a little bit, it was much different than it is today. And so I've tried to apply some of those principles, like, really like calling the newcomer, because I don't expect them to call, because the truth is that when I got sober, I didn't understand that I needed to stay in contact with this guy. I thought I could do it on my own. And so, so I think that there's a more responsibility on those who have found a way to help others find their way.
And how you do anything is how you do everything. So
That's right.
What you're showing is your diligence to adding value, and you've shared that is one of the ways. The service is what has helped you connect even deeper to your higher power, God, whatever language anyone else uses. And by doing so, what you've shared is that you didn't get a chance to you made it back to the White House. So you were on top of your game, seemed a charmed life, had all the toys, had the money, lost everything.
Lost everything.
And came back. Where is it taking you?
Where is it taking me today? Well, what's interesting is that today I'm in infrastructure business development. I'm building infrastructure projects all across the East Coast, and that has been. I love doing that because I see the results of my efforts. I used to be in finance, and I used to just be making changing numbers on a screen and making rich people richer. And I didn't like that because I wasn't doing anything for anybody else. The only person, and I was very selfish and self-centered and self-oriented with my actions. And once I got sober, I realized that it's about so much more than me. This is the things that we do today don't just affect our children, but they affect our grandkids and our great-grandkids. And so I'm realizing that if I can help someone get sober, and they change their life as a result, then that's going to have ripples through time, and that's going to continue to serve the community and serve humanity as a whole. And that's what drives me, because it's not just what I do with this one thing in this one instance. It's I realize that when you work with someone, you help change their world. And I always said this, if you change the world for one person, you change the world for everyone. For everyone, we all benefit. And this is something that I knew this from a business sense, but I didn't understand this from a contribution sense. Because I remember when I was younger, my dad was telling me about Bush, and he said that Bush, you see him in president he's the president now, but you want to know that his grandfather was doing things back then to make sure that his grandson could be president. And so I always knew that the actions I take have an impact, many legacies down the line. But to understand and apply that principle to the sense of contribution and creating value and lifting others up, to a higher vibration, that actually has the same positive consequences. And so I don't know what's going to happen with those that we help today. I don't know how that's going to impact the world, but I know that it's going to make a difference. And so that's why I continue to do it, because it's the most rewarding, fulfilling part of my life today.
And it sounds like when we chatted earlier as well about the project you're working on beyond the business.
I'm working on a few projects.
Right. Well, and we'll get to it from this perspective. You applied this in your life for your recovery.
Yes.
You've also now applied, because the problems are the same. You take addiction out of it. The same thing that stops a business from being successful is the fundamentals that you build it on.
Exactly
so
right.
You're applying that same philosophy. And then we discussed about your personal development opportunities that, again, I asked, is it recovery exclusive? And you said no, because you found that since drugs and alcohol are not the problem, it's basically a personal development opportunity that...
Absolutely.
And one of the things that we use Tony's 6 Needs model about how everyone is an addict.
Yeah.
Everybody. And businesses, when I do leadership development, same thing. I use the same philosophy holistically.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you're helping business infrastructure is creating the same ripple effects.
Yes.
And then beyond. So please tell us about what you're working on that you're proud of.
Sure. Well, what I found is that when I was helping those in recovery, I saw that these principles, these things that were happening, this transformation process that they were going through, was something that could be applied to others, and here's the reason, is that the challenges underneath their addiction, the needs that they were trying to meet underneath their addiction are the same. We're the same species. We have the same needs and the same misgivings and the same pitfalls that we make throughout life. And I realized that sometimes some people's pitfalls could cause them to eat more, or cause them to be addicted to doing things, watching television or watching porn or all these other things. And then some of those can fall into the pitfalls of you actually using drugs and alcohol. But the underlying causes and conditions are the same. It is a need for healing, a search for something to make us feel better in that moment that we are, particularly with drugs and alcohol, putting a Band-Aid on, as opposed to dealing with the truth of the matter underneath. And so I saw that the people that I was helping get better, I knew that, wait a minute, and I saw the causes or what was underneath, and I said that there are other people who can be helped. And there's a line in our book that says that we believe that our way of life has benefits for all. And I saw that if I could help, all people from all different types of backgrounds, so anybody with challenges that they are looking to overcome, or anybody with struggles, as things are being in places where they thought they could never escape from, but actually show them a way to find freedom from being in prison. That there is immense value that can be added to the world. Because I was in prison. I was in a prison of my own mind. And I was in a prison of, the biggest prison in the world is our own minds. And I didn't understand that when I was there, but I saw that now that I have broken free, I can help others break free as well.
That is so perfect, because when we're present to that moment, that we go, man, the only thing that's been stopping me is me. That's right. And that God has always been sitting there. Like when the teacher appears, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
That's right.
When the Spirit is ready, God appears.
That's right.
It's always been there.
Wow. Always been there. That's exactly right.
Always there.
And that's the program, that I'm putting together is called Inner Power Unleashed. And the truth is, because I have been looking my entire life for something outside myself, to be my solution, whether it was drugs, alcohol, women, something out there to make me feel better. And the whole time, the what I was looking for was deep inside the entire time, but I couldn't access it on my own. I had to, I needed someone else who had gone on that path. I needed help. And when I reached out to others and I got help, I was able to see that what I was looking for was there the whole time. Yeah. And that, and there's many, and this is really something that, I talk about in many other fields, is that my program can be summed up as essentially an empowerment program, getting people connected to power. Getting people to break free of their self-limiting beliefs or doubts or ideas and old stories that they had about themselves in the past, and being able to see and connect to that which is within them, because there is greatness in each of us. There is in each of us are uniquely qualified to contribute something amazing to this world, and to see that transformation happen in others is the light of my life today.
Yep.
And yes, I have, and people ask me all the time, what do you do for a living? And I always tell, that question is always funny, because it's like, what do I do for money? Because what I do for money is different than what I do for a living.
Wow.
What I do for money is, I go to work, I have a job, I'm pretty successful at, and that's all well and good. But what I do for a living is what I do that gives me life. And that's all the stuff that I do outside of work. It's all the things that I do that I'm passionate about. That the things that give me life is truthfully helping others find life within themselves, and that's my living today. And
it's beautiful. Yeah. We had a guest, and I was blessed. Actually, this is Independence Day last night. We were blessed to spend the evening with a friend who had been on this conversation as well. His name's Frank McKinney. And I'll introduce you guys. Brilliant man, has been super successful and struggled with came to Florida with $50 in his pocket and has become super successful in real estate and so forth. But the reason why I bring him up is one of the things we talked about is your spiritual highest calling and that alignment. So he does his real estate, and he does big, multi-million-dollar homes, and that's his work. But then he has a spiritual highest calling that allows him to focus on, which is he builds villages for people in Haiti, and that's amazing. And it's the same thing. It's helping people find, because if someone can't eat, if someone can't, they're not going to be necessarily as present as they could be. Right. Not to say it's impossible. It's just a little more challenging. Same thing with what you're sharing is if someone is struggling, they're not able to see that it's right there.
And from studying the 6 human needs, that contribution is the sixth need, and it's one of those needs that unfortunately not everyone meets. But when we do, we have to meet both growth and contribution. We have to grow in order to contribute, and when we meet that need, we're actually able to feel a greater sense of fulfillment than we ever could have by meeting the 4 base needs prior to that. And these are things that I've uncovered and learned.
100%. And the one thing that sometimes people get a little confused about contribution, another can of worms with enabling and all that kind of stuff, as I'm sure you've been aware of, is oftentimes it's like this reciprocation. Like you're almost going, well, I gave to you. Where's my, it doesn't work like that. Contribution is when you're not expecting anything. You're just doing it because it's what's in your heart. It's the right thing to do.
Right.
And one of the things you shared brilliantly before is like, I can't control what other people do with the information. Right, and we want everyone to do well, but it's not like we're looking for like the accolades or the anything. It's we're bringing someone to water.
Yes. Well, and the reason that I do that is because the only reason I'm here today is because someone engaged in the act of contribution and gave back to me and helped me out when I couldn't help myself. Yeah. That's the only reason. Someone did it for me. Someone helped me out when I needed it. And I am a result of that miracle.
And it might have been in a time and in a state you don't even remember who it was. There are probably some angels that you don't even know what they did for you.
There are people. I've had many angels along the way, and I'm grateful to all of them. And unfortunately, they don't know the impact that they've had, but it has made a difference. And so I know the work that we do, the work that you do, has the same impact. The impact on society reverberates throughout the globe.
And so, this will be a shameless plug right now. Yeah. If you're watching this, share it. Have an impact. This conversation could be the game changer for another person. Yes. Your story. Yes. Someone is going to be watching this and be like, oh my gosh, it is possible.
See, that's what I want to emphasize, that people, I didn't talk today about how bad things were. I had multiple organ failure when I came in. I had brain damage, lung damage, liver damage, kidney damage, rhabdomyolysis, acidosis of the blood, and acute renal failure, to stage 4 renal failure, where I was dying, and that this is, I should not be here. I was a statistic. And by the grace of God, I was shown another way. And by grace of God, I went searching for a solution. I looked up and I asked for help. Didn't know where it was going to come from, what it was going to look like. But at that point, someone reached their hand back and lifted me up and saved my life. And that is, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. Because I should be a statistic. I've been to jail, I'm a multiple felon, I've had all these things, regardless of all the great accomplishments I've had, the depth of my addiction had taken me to places where I should no longer be here. But I'm here for a reason. I'm here to give back. I'm here to make a difference.
One of the things I love you shared, the organ failure and all of that, that's people can maybe or maybe not relate to if they didn't get that bad. But hold on, check it out. You at the White House, and then you ended up with all your degrees, all of that. You were packing shelves?
Packing bags at Whole Foods.
So
packing groceries. Gosh, talk about.
But how did you like? It's one thing if you just get given you're about to die, you're in a hospital. But we forget that the bigger challenge sometimes is that humbling to just go. I'm gonna have to. I have all these degrees. I've been with President Obama. I've been in the White House, and now I'm packing groceries.
I was working at the White House with the Clinton administration, and that was the beginning of my career. That was my first job out of high school, and I really thought that this is I was from that point on that anybody who hadn't worked at the White House I was better than, and I had this huge ego and went around, and that ego unfortunately kept me sick for a very long time. And it wasn't until I got beaten into a state of submission, beaten into a state of surrender, through enough pain. I had to go through pain in order to make this decision. Because if it wasn't painful, I wouldn't have looked for a solution. I would have stuck around. But it was enough pain, and actually it transformed into suffering. Because they say that suffering is pain that we are powerless to change. And when I saw that I could no longer do anything about this pain in my life, this addiction in my life, there was no more ways for me to manage my health or keep myself alive and still use drugs and alcohol. It is only then when I was given through the gift of desperation another way out, and I decided to search, and that's when I ended up at Father Martin's. I ended up, finding light that had been, that essentially had been lit by others. Because what we do, the work that I do, is really just lighting a fire in other people's hearts, and letting them go out and light the fire in others. That is, we're just passing on the torch. Passing on the motive to change and do great things and find that within themselves. That has that will enable them to be and do all that they thought they couldn't do before. And the thing is that even though I was very accomplished then, now that I've done the work, now that I've gotten rid of and have uncovered, discovered, and discarded so many self-limiting beliefs and things about myself and all of that, now I am, even though I have multiple felonies, multiple rehabs, my vision is so much grander than it was when I thought I was accomplished. It was so much grander than when I was working at the hedge fund and working at the White House and thought that that I was still limited. My world was very small. Now I see this entire planet truthfully needs help. Each of us can need help and can use help. We're all human. We all can benefit from someone else reaching out a hand, someone else, helping us out when we're in need, someone else passing on something that has helped them. Yep. And that's why I say we're uniquely qualified to make a difference in other people's lives, regardless of what we've been through.
And the one thing that we can, as uniquely qualified as we all are, every story ultimately teaches us what? It's always been here anyway. That's the only thing we can all agree on. We all got different stories, we got all that, but if you think about all the best stories, what did the Cowardly Lion learn?
Yes, that's right.
He always had the courage.
That's right.
Yeah, the Tin Man always had the heart.
That's exactly right.
We all have that, and this whole journey, and to just sort of end on this piece.
Yeah.
It's again from hearing you speak, and I can think we can agree, is that most people, the reason we're having all these challenges in the world today, whether it be political, otherwise, is that we've lost touch with being okay with who we are.
Yeah.
That we're so busy comparing ourselves, and we're so busy worrying about what other people think and all of that, instead of just being okay with being one with God, and God is everything. Yeah. So you're different and I'm different, and that's cool. Celebrate the differences. And be cool with it.
Yes. I used to think that God or my high power, whatever you want to call it, played a meritocracy, and I had to earn God's love, and I had to, they said, I remember growing up, and going to church, and they said I had to do this, and I got God's love. If I didn't do that, then I was hated and all that. But yes, yeah. But what I realized is that God's love is inherent in all of us just because we exist, because who we are, because we are on this planet. I tell people that they are special because at the time of their birth, the planet could not go on unless they were in the world. And so I think, that's how significant people are. That's how special that in our lives are. That we, a guy named Gary Vee, who I love, I follow, he says, we hit the lotto. We were 1 out of 400 trillion sperm, to actually have a life. And so, like, the fact...
And if we're still here, someone loved us. Yes. How can we ever feel unloved?
Yes.
If no one loved us, we would have been dead.
Yes.
We wouldn't be here. So we got to carry that torch.
Yes. And so you were talking about self-love, understanding that I was looking for love outside myself, but not looking inward. But when I began to look inward, I saw that there was enough. There was enough love to go around, and I saw that what I did with my life mattered. And that's when I said it today, that what we do matters. That I used to think that, okay, well, if I die of addiction, maybe that's not that bad, and it doesn't well, yeah, that sucks obviously for me, but it doesn't affect anybody else. But realizing that every person on this planet, I don't care how rich or poor you are, we all matter. And we all can make a difference. And all of our lives have meaning, but it's up to us to create that meaning. We have, we have the paintbrush. And we can either use our addiction story as something, to play the victim and to use it as an excuse, or we can use it as a story of triumph, a story of empowerment, and a source of something, to inspire others to do greater. And so, and that's and I realize that everybody has that. And I don't care what it is, I don't care what struggle they're going through, that if they are able to find a way out of some struggle in their life, they're able to help others do that. That gives them meaning, get them value, and that tells them that they matter.
1,000%. And if we can all just buy that, own that, then we don't have to be worried about what other people are doing. Only that we're living the best version of us and celebrating that and helping someone say, if I'm going to be like you, I'd rather be I'm just like you, adding value, looking for the greatness in others and not being the victim and showing people that it's possible to be victorious.
Yes, it is possible. I thought that, I do see myself as a miracle, but I also, ascribe to Einstein's, quote, there's two ways to view life, either as if nothing is a miracle or as if everything's a miracle. And so I see myself as a miracle, but I also know that miracle could happen for anybody.
That's exactly, when you can accept that, then you can see it in others. You're not going to cut people down because you're like, I'm awesome and you're awesome. I'm not more awesome, I'm different.
Yeah, exactly.
Different awesome.
Exactly. That the whole thing of the social media and the comparison world, that there is no one better or no one worse than you. Whatsoever. And I used to feel that way because I was always, when I was on that search for external things, trying to manage my life by feeling up from the outside, that there was never enough. I was in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction. And it was only when I found that source of love, that source of abundance within, that I realized that, not only is there more enough for me, but there's more enough for everyone else.
That's that interesting duality we're always struggling with. And once we let go of it, and just get present,
gosh,
you can want more, but you don't get more till you appreciate what you've got emotionally, spiritually, financially. It doesn't really matter what we're talking about.
Now that you're actually speaking of something that happened for me, which was a huge mindset shift. Because for so long I've been living my life from a place of scarcity, a place of not enoughness, a place of that there is, I have to keep as much as I can for myself and hold it tight and not let any of it go. But what I was doing is that I was essentially blocking off anything else from coming to me. So let's look at money, or let's look at love, or say you have your hand out and you're holding on tight to money, then there's no room for any to come in. But when you actually open your hand up and you switch from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, you open yourself up to the flow of money, the flow of love that is available and that is surrounding all of us. On this planet, there's enough of resources, enough love for everyone to have, and to think that there's not enough, that actually came from a place of fear. But I had to switch my mindset through doing the work, through taking the actions, through, doing, all the things that others had done before me, and transferring it from fear to faith. And now I live a life of faith, because here's the thing. I realized that there's evidence. A lot of people say, well, the world's messed up, and why I need to keep things for myself. I need to work hard and just keep this myself. But there's also evidence for incredible abundance, incredible, amazing, things that are available to us if we choose. And so, to me, faith is a choice. I can either choose to look at the negative, or I can either choose to look at and align with the evidence for the positive.
But either way, it's still faith, isn't it?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The fear is still faith misdirected. It's just like...
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
I believe, I don't know for sure this crap's going to happen, but I believe it might, so I'm going to focus on that. But the same way, I don't know for sure this amazing thing will happen, and that's the choice. That's the freedom. The freedom of faith, of choosing where we direct it.
Yes.
Wow. That's deep. I feel like we've expelled some demons here today.
Yes, we have, and but there is so much more, and that's the thing. This thing does not end. And I tell people who are new in recovery, who are just getting sober, does this thing get better? Yes. it gets better and better and better, and it never has to level off. It never has to end. I mean, this is something, you know, that we can continue to go to higher heights. We can continue to grow, and we can continue to contribute, and can continue to find, tap in more within ourselves. And that is something that, you know, I'm still at the beginning. I'm just at the beginning of my journey. And
what's so amazing compared to most people would be like, oh my gosh, I aspire to live your life, and you're lighting the way for them, and then there's others, and there's nothing wrong with that. We just got to be okay with where we're at, and then go, oh, wait a minute, I want what Jonathan has. Let me go learn about Jonathan, what's he's got going on. And then just listen, and then follow the advice.
Yes, follow. That was the biggest thing for me in my surrender. Following the advice, doing what they say. There's a line in our book that says, rarely have we seen someone failed who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover or those who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. So in that line, it tells you, you know, who doesn't get sober and who does. It says those that get sober, those that, you know, follow the path. You know, those that, you know, and those that don't, you know, who could not give themselves to this program. And that program, whether that's 12-step, whether that's smart recovery, or whether that's, you know, whatever, you know, program is in front of you, the thing is take it and do it. Yes, and do the work. Do the work. And I'm not sure who's going to see this, but, you know,
the right people will.
The right people, that's right. They will.
The ones who need it.
That's right.
And probably some are going to see it, feel like they don't, and if you're still watching, you know you do.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And that's okay. And that's the thing is, for all of this, just I hope that for my wish for everyone who's on whatever journey they're on, that they appreciate and understand that there are people like you out there who genuinely care and freely give your advice, that you want people to succeed. That oftentimes, I think sometimes people think like there's some secondary motives. And what I found is the truly successful people like freely give their advice or information because they want other people to succeed with.
That's right.
Right? There's old saying, misery loves company. But so does happiness and success.
That's
we just like to hang out with happy people.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. You know, I was reminded by a quote. We were talking about, you know, faith being a choice, and you know, choosing, you know, to follow the path of others before us is, you know, that's a choice. And we were talking earlier about the consequences of our decisions, and you know, and how it is not our conditions in life, but our decisions in life that determine our destiny. And I'm reminded of a quote by a fellow of mine named Willard Barth. You may know him.
Yeah, of course. He'll be sitting in this chair.
Really?
Next time he's down here.
Oh, wow!
Great man, love him.
Fantastic. Yeah, and he says, you know, pain is a requirement. He said, growth is optional, but transformation is a choice. And that's the truth. We can either choose to follow this path, follow these amazing resources that have been laid in front of us by people like you, people like me, and so many others. And we can choose that, or we can choose by staying where we are. And here's something that I recently just truly understand, that indecision is still a decision.
Yeah.
It's actually the worst decision. Because you're not seeing what works and what doesn't, and I did that for so long. And that's something that I had to, you know, and these are things that I'm learning, you know, in sobriety. You know, these are things, you know, I had a few different businesses that I wanted to start, and I wasn't sure which one to go through. And someone told me, he said, well, I said, well, I didn't want to fail, so I wanted to choose the one that's going to work. He said, well, what is failure? Failure is it not working. He said, well, isn't that what's happening now? He said, if you don't choose, if you don't choose, they're not going to work. And so I realized, I say, wow, it is, I have to make the choice. I have to act. I have to make a decision. If it doesn't work, then I can change and I can adjust.
Well, and then that's what brings me to this one thought. When you talked about the program, and I've known this for, well, it's when other people who talked about the old timers, they did it in, you know, velocity. God loves speed, right? So you make a decision. You take the reason why speed works is because you find out quickly. if it works or doesn't. And
Yes,
then
that's
because
right.
you've got action, you've got momentum, you can now adjust your course and then
exactly right.
fix. So the lag time, you also get to shorten.
That's exactly right.
So you get the lag time of knowing if it didn't work, but
That's
you also
exactly
get the lag time of succeeding. So the faster you move, the faster you find out, the less time you spend
Exactly.
in like that, oh no, what do I do? That paralysis from analysis mode where then nothing gets done.
Exactly. You know, it says in the third step, and when at the end of the third step, it says, next we commenced, after making this decision, we commenced on a vigorous course of action at once. I mean, it's like, you make a decision, take action.
Right. You make the decision once.
Yeah.
And then you just manage it. You just say, take tons of action and go,
right.
okay, I made that decision. So you decided finally,
Yeah.
create a life worth being sober for. And then you do the
That was
work
a choice.
daily.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then it's just management.
That's right.
Now those are smaller, easier decisions.
Yeah. There's you know, today I have quality problems. I have good problems today, and you know, and that's something that I'm grateful for.
100%.
Yeah. Every day that I wake up is a gift. Every day that I am above ground, and every day that I have breath, and every day that I can give back, every day that I can, you know, work with amazing people like yourself, and continue to help and change and light fires in the hearts of others is a gift.
Amen.
This is and it's a miracle which I'm grateful for. So.
Well, let me take this opportunity to thank you again for coming here and sharing your spirit, your love, your journey, because we look forward to doing more, because I can see that there's going to be plenty of opportunities for us to add tremendous value and have a huge impact. And it'll be my pleasure, my privilege to be part of anything you're working on.
Absolutely. I didn't get a chance to talk about it. There's if you're looking for more information,
yes, please.
Go to innerpowerunleashed.com. It's my website. There's also a Facebook page. You'll be able to find more information on how you can experience a transformation in your life, whatever you're going through, whatever challenge or obstacle that may be preventing you from getting to the next level. I am putting together a program that helps people do that, both internally, both from the inside as well as the out. This is both, you know, mind, body, and spirit.
Beautiful.
So it's just, and I didn't mention this earlier because I was dying, but now I recently just ran a half marathon. I'm doing several, you know, I'm probably going to be doing a triathlon in a couple months. And this is someone who had you know, lung damage and brain damage and kidney failure. So this program works, and it is, yes. And it's something that can be applied to all.
Well, we'll put a link at in this as well, of course.
Absolutely.
So again, Jonathan, thank you so much. And if you're ever back in town, we want to follow up. We want to have some more ways to keep the momentum going, because it's our mission to be sure we're serving as deeply and as widely as possible. So thank you so much again. You are awesome.